Formula One is an ever-growing sport that reached heights it could have only dreamt of a couple of years ago. However, it didn't come without its consequences. The fans might enjoy the growing calendar and seeing their favourite drivers race much more frequently in a year, but the sustainability of the model has been brought under question to the point of Fernando Alonso and Max Verstappen threatening to retire if this trend continues. On top of that, the calendar's growth is mainly focused on street circuits, the most hated ones from F1 drivers. So you can't help but wonder, is 24 races in a calendar too much? And if so, can F1 battle the popularity rise and stand alongside its drivers? It's safe to say that Formula One is in a place where Liberty Media projected it back in 2017 after taking over the management rights, which was shown after the American-based company denied a $20 billion offer from a Saudi Arabian fund. Be that as it may, it seems like this is not necessarily as good of a thing for the sport as you might think, because 24 races in a calendar means that once the drivers start the journey on the 29th of February, they will end it on the 8th of December, which is more or less 10 months of racing. To top that off, the last 3 races are triple headers that need to fit in to the tight schedule of the sport. And as we saw in 2023, back-to-back races from Las Vegas to Abu Dhabi, 2 places that are separated by a 19-hour flight and high temperature differences, is not something the drivers and the crew want to experience. George Russell is the first to have voiced his concerns about a potential substitute crew that could replace the existing one in different parts of the F1 circus, because the plan for 2024 is barely sustainable as it stands right now. Elaborating on this matter even further, the Mercedes driver and the president of the GPDA went on to say, "The drivers, we have it best from every single person in this paddock. The way we travel, we're in a very fortunate position. But everybody up and down the paddock, I've got so many mechanics who are ill, people in the engineer's office just really struggling with the constant time zone shifts, the body not knowing where you are, eating at different times, staying at different hotels, different environments, different climates. The body is getting confused. There are talks for next year about personnel being regulated so that they can't do every single race. I think that would be a good thing. I don't think it's sustainable for 4,000 people to do 24 races a season, especially when you see how geographically it still doesn't make a huge amount of sense." This is just the tip of the iceberg, however, because even though Russell's concerns are valid and have solid foundations, the situation has gone to the extent of drivers threatening to retire from the sport if this growing calendar continues. Fernando Alonso, who voiced no concerns of early retirement due to his age, said that if he has to race 24 times in a year, especially heading into triple headers, then there's definitely a good reason for him to actually consider retirement, as his battery would be drained out. Now that you have the most experienced driver on the grid and a 2-time world champion complaining about the current schedule, what could get worse than that? Well, let me tell you, a reigning 3-time world champion who has the same attitude as Alonso. We'll get to Verstappen's statements later in the video, but first I want to talk about how Fernando could be chased away by the sport's greediness for more money and more racing venues after finally having a car in which he can compete for podiums and race wins. Elaborating on the most recent issue in Formula One, Alonso went on to say, "To be competitive, to feel the speed again, and to arrive to the weekend again knowing that you need to do everything perfect because there is a podium possibility or a race win possibility, that really gives you a different approach and a very different love for the things you do and dedications. I said many times, even before 2018, the day that I will stop racing is not because I feel not motivated for driving or I feel slow. If I feel slow one day, I think it will be noticeable and think I will not be happy with my performance, and I will be the first one to raise my hand and say, this is time to stop. It's been a very demanding season in 2023 with only 22 races with 2 cancellations. Next year, with the proper 24-round calendar, we have to see how it feels. I saw that it's a triple header. I don't know why. I thought that Vegas was alone next year. It's 3 races together. These kinds of things will drain my battery, not driving. Well, there you have it, guys. Alonso might not race in F1 for much longer, and it's quite interesting because his statements come after he said that the sport should not continue racing on tracks like Las Vegas, no matter how glamorous or profitable they are. The drivers had to race in the midnight hours, which is not very good for the body and the biorhythm of the body, and as Alonso elaborated, the current versions of the F1 cars are not made to go 80 kilometers an hour in a corner. They are made to go in high-speed corners like Suzuka, and unfortunately we're seeing less and less of that. To add salt to the wound, F1 is looking to throw away one more traditional circuit, one that has been used as a track on which lots of car testing happens, in Barcelona, and put the Spanish GP in Madrid, in an outlet that also involved a roundabout. Yes, you heard that right. The drivers would have to go through a roundabout just because of the ever-growing wish of F1 to race on street circuits. And it seems like the sport does anything but listen to the most important factor here, the drivers and their feedback when it comes to racing in these types of conditions. It doesn't end here. F1 plans to expand its calendar in New York as well, as Dominicali has picked Central Park and the green side around it as the perfect place to have a Formula One race. It's a weird time to be an F1 fan, but it seems like the drivers won't put up with behaviour like this, which kind of proves that it's all about the money and the business interest rather than pure racing. Max Verstappen has also raised his concerns about being present in the sport for a longer period of time if this trend continues. And while he didn't threaten to retire directly as Alonso did, which is understandable considering how much he has to achieve in his F1 career, he was quite straightforward when it comes to being satisfied with where the sport is moving forward. Elaborating on this, Verstappen said, "I'm worried about the sport I have always enjoyed. I still do, but only to a certain extent. It's not that I'm totally against change like some people claim, but those changes have to be benefit for Formula One. Why do you have to change things when they're going well? I think a traditional qualifying session is a great format. It doesn't all have to revolve around money. People might think, well, he makes a lot of money. What is that guy complaining about? But it's about your well-being, how you experience things, and now how much you make. I feel like I have to do too much and skip other things I enjoy doing, so I sometimes think, is it still worth it?" What people tend to forget is that drivers are not just popping up on Friday, practicing a little bit, qualifying on Saturday, finishing a race on Sunday, and then when the event is over, they start the preparations for the next one. Their racing weekend starts on Thursday with all the media activities, and if you have back-to-back races, that often means that they're forced to hop on a plane right after the race and rest for a couple of days, only before they put their lives at risk again while driving 300 kilometers an hour in engineering masterpieces. According to Verstappen, travel is not that big of a problem as much as the extensive market activities of Red Bull, which would all be limited if there were fewer tracks to drive on. With this in mind, there certainly is a growing belief that Formula One needs to consider cutting down the calendar and not expanding that much to street circuits, no matter how provocative and refreshing they are for the capitalistic view of the sport. But be that as it may, the question is to you guys, do you think F1 is becoming too much to handle for the F1 drivers and the crew that travels with them as well? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.